On March 9th, the family of an autistic 15-year-old boy called the Apple Valley, California police for help. According to reports, Ryan Gaynor was assaulting family members and damaging property. When officers arrived, this is what happened.
Where's he at? Hey, get back! Get back, you're gonna get shot!
Now, again, this is them coming. So I need y'all to do this here. When he steps out, I need y'all to freeze the video right there so people can actually see what happens. So you see the doors open, freeze right there. It appears if there is something in his hand. Now, again, that's what it appears. This story has generated lots and lots of attention because, again, he was gunned down. The family was trying to get help, and then he ends up being killed. Now, does the video cut off right there, or is there a second video? Okay, so that's all that they have released thus far. Mia Ives-Rublee is a Disability Justice Initiative for the Center for American Progress, joins us right now. So Mia, this reminds me of the story in Dallas. Mother, concerned about her son, calls the cops. He comes to the door. He has a screwdriver, and he's sort of flipping the screwdriver. Within seconds, officers unload, they kill him. Nothing done to the particular officers in that case here. This is another example why you cannot send cops on mental health calls. They automatically are going to shoot and kill. Mia, I think you're on mute. I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Now we got you. Go ahead.
Wonderful. I am so sorry. Thank you so much for having me. Unfortunately, this situation is all too familiar. It's one of the reasons why the disability community has been so vocal about the issues with interactions with police, particularly for Black and brown individuals. I think that, unfortunately, we're going to continue to see this happen without real accountability and real policy changes.
This is and again, in the wake of the death of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, a number of police departments were talking about, again, sending mental health experts out on these particular calls. And trying to change how the decision making. And as long as police go there, look, they're going to assess the situation totally different than somebody else.
100%. I was trained as a clinical social worker and understand what goes on in a lot of these cases, having worked with individuals with mental health disabilities for over 6 years as a counselor. And so, I think that we have a real problem that stems historically. I think that we have significantly underfunded programs that could actually help individuals with mental health disabilities. We have unfortunately discriminated against individuals with mental health disorders. And so individuals are not seeking care when they need to. And when they do seek care, they are unable to get it. They're unable to access it. For years, we saw a continual decrease in funding until the CARES Act came about. And that was due to the pandemic. And during the CARES Act, we saw an increase in funding for mental health treatment. We also saw the Biden administration increased funding for mental health. But unfortunately, a lot of our focus has been in crisis care management, which only deals with when sort of that interaction, that deadly interaction occurs between individuals with disabilities and police. Where we really need to be spending money is actually before this crisis occurs. And unfortunately, we're still seeing significant issues of people being able to access care. We've seen a lot of discrimination and a lot of making fun of people with mental health disorders, a lot of criminalization of it. And so people don't feel comfortable trying to seek mental health care.
The thing here, Niambi, first of all, a San Bernardino sheriff's deputy is the one who shot Ryan Gaynor. And it was at the family's home again in Apple Valley, California. Now, here's what's interesting. So the sheriff's department, they have not released a full body cam video. Now, this is a story I'm pulling up from The Guardian. During the roughly 5-minute call, the woman said the other relatives were trying to keep their distance from him. At one point, she said, "He's talking to my dad right now. He said he's going to run away," and then he came back to the house. She also said he had a piece of glass. Now, if you look in the video the officer comes up, and the officer actually does something that we've often talked about they should. When he sees the young man, the officer actually retreats. He actually retreats. The story here, hold on, don't play it yet. The story here says the deputy appeared to be walking backward, then running away from the boy, pointing his gun at him. The other clip captured that same moment from another deputy who was arriving and standing at a distance. Gaynor appeared to be holding a tool. It was a gardening tool over his head, but it's unclear what he was doing as he was shot. So if you play the video here, and we say this all the time, because I think about the young man Powell in St. Louis. Same thing. Cops arrive on the scene literally within 13 seconds of the door open. Look, he's dead because I think he approached him with a butter knife. So roll a video here. So the sheriff's deputy, roll a video. Turn audio up, please.
Where is he at?
We got a stick in the back, guys.
Hey, get back! Get back, you're getting shot!
Okay, right here. So all of a sudden, so here's what we don't know, because they haven't released the information, Niambi. We don't know which officer shot him. They haven't released how many bullets were fired, where he was shot. The family says they believe he was shot 3 times. So you see the officer actually retreating when normally they're firing right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is, I don't know if that's a redeeming thing. And certainly you said it is rare, because usually officers stand their ground and they just shoot. I don't know if the officer was trying to create distance. So the young man may, run off some steam. I don't know what was happening. And like you said, we won't know until we see the full thing. I think what's most certainly probably going to happen is this officer will continue to be employed, and this family will have probably a difficult time with any kind of legal claim here. I think it's unfortunate that this young boy's life has been reduced to that and to this moment. I mean, this is a forever decision in a moment when this young man was clearly in distress and having a temporary episode. It didn't seem from all accounts that this was a usual thing for him, but the officer's training is the officer's training. They always go to the thing that they know how to do, which is to use deadly force. And to your point earlier about having trained mental health professionals be deployed on these calls, is something that we're still waiting to see. Because in this case, this young man had maybe a stick, and I'm not suggesting that anybody wants to be hit by a stick, but it didn't appear that he had anything that might lead.
Well, we heard stick, but we also heard a gardening tool.
A gardening
so we don't know if that was a shovel, if that was a rake, if that was a hoe.
Don't know.
If that was we don't know what that was.
Right, and certainly it would hurt, and it could kill somebody. But I don't think officers are trained to make those kinds of assessments.
No. I mean,
Something in their hand, they're coming at you. You try to create distance. He's not moving. You told him to stop. He could get shot, and you shoot. And here we are with a dead 15-year-old boy and a family that I'm sure is destroyed.
And Matt, on that point, again, officers say, put it down or you're going to get shot. Officers retreating. You see him turning away, but apparently still pointing a gun. The other officer is at a distance watching the whole thing unfold. This is the problem that we face. And again, this is the umpteenth story that we've done where a family has called the cops because of a mental episode of a family member, and the family member ends up dead.
Yeah, this case scares me. I have close family members who have autism, and what scares me about this is that in a circumstance like this, the police don't have enough time to figure out the extent of a potential threat. However, to be a credible lawyer, I have to tell you this is much different than a lot of the other cases that we cover, because in this circumstance, people with weapons very quickly can close distance. What I suspect happened here, which I haven't seen confirmed yet, but that the autopsy would show, is that the officer who was not the one being approached the closest with the weapon is probably the one who shot, and they'll say it's defensive third person. And frankly, I think they would likely be legally responsible, or rather legally absolved. It's a very tough circumstance, but there's a bigger analysis than just an officer shot. When somebody is coming at you with a gardening tool that looks like a long weapon, I think Dr. Nyambi is right. It may just cause injury, but it might also cause death. And I don't think it's unreasonable for officers to protect themselves in circumstances like this, where it's demonstrably true that somebody is coming at them with a weapon. I think the biggest issue in this case, and I've actually had two cases just like this, nobody died, but it was a mental health call. I think the bigger issue is police departments around the country, like has already been said, do not have the resources to respond, and officers don't have the training to respond. And in one of my cases, that's exactly what I sued the city for. I said that that when people have mental health crises, if you send officers, you're basically heightening the possibility that someone's going to get hurt because the officers don't have the requisite training. And that is the deprivation of rights to me in this circumstance, particularly if the dispatcher had any reason to believe that this young man was suffering from a mental health episode. That's why you send crisis intervention teams. That's why you send trained social workers to make sure that someone who is unable to control their conduct by virtue of a mental illness is not harmed, because an officer is not able to read that as mental illness rather than, them merely attacking them. So the bigger systemic issue here, as has already been said, is officers not accommodating, or police departments not accommodating for that mental illness. And that's why in one of the cases I had like this, I brought an ADA violation, because people with mental health issues are entitled to have officers accommodate those issues. And that's customarily what police departments don't do in these circumstances.
I talked about, Michael, the Kojima Powell story. And this happened shortly after Mike Brown had been killed in Ferguson. Go to my iPad, and you'll see. And this is what, see. I love these yahoos on who we're following here on our YouTube chat who don't understand. We do these stories all the time. We've broken down numerous videos. So when I talked about the case of the officer in the Ryan Gaynor retreating, because and again, normally the cops would not retreat. Normally that cop would have stood right there, and the moment he walked out of that doorway and he yelled, "Stop, put the weapon down, I'm gonna shoot," they would have fired. So I am crediting the cop for walking away, yelling at him what to do. But the Kojima Powell story is a perfect example. This is the video here. You see right here.
This is the moment just before
he comes on and literally they step out of the cars. They're not behind the door. He's got some butter knife or some kind of steak knife in his hand. Now this is the BBC video. They didn't show it, but literally he makes a lunging moment. He wasn't actually up on the cop. Right. The law says they can use deadly force. I criticized this because officers could have waited behind the vehicle, behind the doors, creating some distance. When the call was made, they talked about it was a mental issue, and just like in this case right here. So I now wonder, okay, what information was passed on from the 911 dispatcher to the cops on the scene? Did they say, oh, domestic situation, young man attacking family members, or were they told that, hey, autistic kid having a mental breakdown, any of that? And this is the part of the problem here when you are not passing that information down. So a cop, if they don't have that, they get onto the scene, they are assessing danger immediately, and they are trained to eliminate the danger and then figure out what happened. That's just a fact.
Yeah, a few things here, and I'm looking at the article from VVNG.com. Number one, now with this particular sheriff's department, I don't know if they have mental health professionals that are dispatched. I know here in the city of Detroit, we do have that. And we also in the city of Detroit have police officers who are trained to deal with mental health issues. OK, number one. Number two, in looking at the information that the sheriff's department released, a news release about the information given to the dispatcher, they were told that the 15-year-old was actively assaulting family members and damaging property at the residence. Number three, according to this article, he had an approximately 5-foot-long garden tool with a sharp bladed end. So yes, it can do damage to the police officer. Yes, I think the police officer was correct in retreating, giving commands. This didn't seem like a situation from what we've seen so far where he was quick on the trigger, quick to shoot. And the 15-year-old, unfortunately, was coming towards him. OK, so we should get all of the footage. We should get more details. But this looks a lot different than some other ones that we have seen and talked about here on this show, where it looked like an execution. This looked different than that.
Mia, I talked about the case out of Dallas, Jason Harrison, same thing. And again, for all the people who are watching, listening, understand, we have done a lot of these stories, and we've seen a lot of this video. This here was the Harrison video, and it gives you an understanding of how cops operate differently. The cops come to the door. Come on, guys. Come on. Cops come to the door, and his mother calls, hey, son's operating erratic. Pull the volume up.
What's going on?
They open the door. Mother says, I can't control him.
Who's that?
Chopping up people in the sun. Bipolar schizo.
What's going on? You drop that for me? Drop that for me, guy. No,
Jay!
Drop it!
Jay!
Drop it!
Jay!
That right there, me, is a problem. And again, these officers were cleared. They got stun guns. He's got a screwdriver in his hand. He's not lunging at them. They don't retreat. They tell him, hey, drop that. They know it's a mental disturbance call. The man has schizophrenia. His mother says it. She's walking out. She's right there. In 30 seconds of them knocking and the door opening, he's dead. And so this is the struggle that you cannot continue to have mental health breakdowns, and we're sending cops and we're not sending trained mental health professionals first.
Yeah.
Or with them.
Yeah. I think all of these, the fact that we continuously see the same pattern over and over again, I think that it just shows that we have a failed system right now. It shows that we know what the problem is, and we are unwilling to actually address specific issues. I think that we need to stop the situation even before we get to this point. I think a lot of these individuals get to these crisis points. We already know that they're heading towards these crisis points, yet they have no outlet to receive care, which is why it's so important that we push for, long-term solutions, things like putting more money into the mental health system, creating more parity in terms of insurance and Medicaid reimbursement rates, et cetera, because, no matter what we do, I don't think that any amount of training will stop what we are seeing right now.
No, because police officers, it is their training. Matt, you often talk about it, but folks who don't know, just walk people through, one, frankly, what their training is and how the law allows for them to use force, deadly force, when dealing with one of these situations.
So, I don't know all the training that every officer gets, but what I've very often seen them say is that a person can close distance of about 20 feet if they have a weapon. So I think some of the common training, and anybody who's a police officer can correct me if I'm wrong, but they're trained that if somebody is within that 20-foot distance, if they're going to deploy the weapon, number one, they do so until they think the threat is immobilized. And from the legal standpoint, one of the questions that we always have posed and that we always discuss is the difference between civil remedies and criminal penalties for the use of force. And obviously, officers are statutorily or legally given the right to use force. So where they think that force is appropriate, whether it's for defending themselves or defending a third person, as I mentioned, they can use deadly force where they think it is appropriate. Now, from the civil standpoint, the question is always whether that force is excessive, whether it was appropriate, whether an officer, looking at it on the scene rather than with the hindsight of 20/20 vision, so to speak, would do the same thing. That's the question from a civil standpoint. Criminally, I think it would be very hard to charge these officers because the video shows very clearly there was a threat coming to them, and that's just demonstrably true. The civil question of whether the police department should have had an appropriate response that, responded to the mental health crisis is a different question. And that's where I think the due process of law issue comes up for the family. But in the relation of force and excessive force, I think this is going to be a difficult lawsuit. I cannot imagine there will be a criminal prosecution because the video very clearly shows that when they got there, they were approached by someone with a weapon that could do serious damage. And just frankly, their training says shoot till you immobilize the threat.
Yep. Folks, this is from August 2023, a story from the Associated Press. Many big cities now answer mental health crisis calls with civilian teams, not police. And inside of the story, it talks about, let me pull it up, give me 1 second. Data gathered by the Associated Press show at least 14 of the 20 most populous U.S. cities are hosting or starting such programs, sometimes called civilian alternative or non-police response teams. They span from New York and Los Angeles to Columbus, Ohio, and Houston. They boast annual budgets that together topped $123 million as of June. Tamara Lynn of the National De-Escalating Training Center said, quote, if someone is experiencing a mental health crisis, law enforcement is not what they need. In Colorado, this was a result of a case of this young man shot and killed, Christian Glass, as part of the, as you see right here, as part of the $19 million settlement this spring with his parents. Colorado's Clear Creek County joined a growing roster of U.S. communities that respond to nonviolent mental health crises with clinicians and EMTs or paramedics instead of police. So, Mia, that really has to be the focus. If we're talking about how do we deal with this here, we've got to be advocating all across the country for cities to set aside money to have mental health professionals responding to mental health calls and not the police at the outset.
Yeah, I think that's one of the solutions. But I also do think that we need to pay more attention to the back end, including more money towards, wraparound services for individuals with mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mental health care. I think it's essential that we address the issue before it becomes a crisis, because then, police are still sent to any situation that could be suspected as violent. And, a situation with somebody with, say, a wrench in their hand, you know, it just depends. Sort of, do you think that's a clear threat or not? And so I really want to emphasize the importance of wraparound services like critical time intervention, you know, the ACT services, et cetera, that provide case management, it provides medication management, and it provides mental health support.
All right. Mia, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.